Hi, I'm Tim Newton from the Krannert School of Management, joined today by Chantel Lenard, who is the Executive Director of U.S. Marketing for the Ford Motor Company, a Purdue graduate, so back on campus.
Yes, happy to be back.
And an engineering graduate,
hmm
went from here to get a Harvard MBA and then the automotive industry.
Right.
Why?
Well, so as you said, I graduated from Purdue in Industrial Engineering. I spent a couple years working at Ford, and while I was there, I found that I really wanted to be more involved in the business side of what we did, setting strategy and long-term goals, and so I thought I needed to get more education. So I did go back and get an MBA. Didn't think I'd come back to the automotive industry. There were a lot of other things I wanted to explore, but I found I really missed being part of a company that made things and things that make a real difference in people's lives, providing transportation that allows them to have different opportunities in life, different jobs where they can live. Cars play such an important role in that. And so coming back to a company like Ford was a great fit for me. I felt like I could make a difference at Ford itself, but also our company makes a difference in the world and in people's lives, and that was important.
You've had so many different roles at Ford, which is an American icon. Talk about some of the roles and an international assignment as well, how that has helped develop your career.
Sure. So I have been very fortunate to work in a number of different functions in Ford. I've been in finance, I've been in strategy, purchasing, engineering, and then ultimately marketing and sales has been where I've spent the majority of my career. What that's allowed me to do is understand many different parts of the business, so I see how all the pieces fit together. Now then, I did have an opportunity to work in Shanghai, which was our headquarters for Asia Pacific and Africa. And there I led the marketing team for that whole region. And it was a really exciting time for Ford because we were in the middle of a huge growth phase. When I got there, we sold 4 vehicles in China, 4 different nameplates, and we were in the midst of launching 15 new vehicles over 5 years. So again, to see the impact that we could make in different types of markets. So we covered New Zealand and Australia, developed markets similar to the US, but places like Vietnam, Malaysia, India, where their middle class is just reaching the point where they can buy vehicles. And when they drive in on a scooter and leave in a vehicle, the change that makes in their lives is huge. And to be part of that was really exciting.
You mentioned that Ford is an American icon. Back in the day, a long time ago, it was Ford, it was Chevrolet, General Motors, those kinds of things. The foreign imports that have come in, the competition, how has Ford remained relevant and remained a leader in the market with all the new competition?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because we see now not only the traditional competitors like Chevy and Chrysler and Toyota, Honda, and others, but now we see new competitors coming on like Apple and Google who've said that they want to get into the vehicle space, particularly autonomous vehicles. So it's really important for us, we believe, to play our game and to stay focused on our strategy. And what we've always been about is ingenuity, going way back to the days of Henry Ford and the moving assembly line, and always looking at what's the new technology and being innovative, and then attainability. So making our technology available to the masses. We think that's really important. So we've said that we may not be the first to develop autonomous vehicles, but we want to be the one that develops autonomous vehicles that everyone can have. And so that's really important to the core values of Ford, and that's one thing that I think makes us different.
How do you develop a marketing strategy for such a large and interconnected company that is useful not only in the United States, but in your case, all over the world?
Yeah, so one of the things that over the last few years we've done is we've made sure that our vehicles are global. And that helps us from a cost perspective, certainly, that we spend fewer dollars developing the vehicles. We also then allows us to share things around the world. What we don't share, though, is how we connect with customers, because that is culturally relevant. The process of how we go to market and how we develop marketing campaigns is the same around the world. But the message we speak and how we connect with those individual consumers, even the media that we're in, varies by market because it has to be relevant in that individual market. And that's where we really depend on our local experts in those markets to share with us how we best do that.
You have been named as one of the top women in the automotive industry. Talk about being a woman in the automotive industry because, frankly, I think back in the days when everything was sexist, people thought cars, guys. How has it been more difficult to be a female executive in the automotive industry?
Yeah, for me, I think I've found it to be an advantage because it gives you probably extra visibility. There are still much fewer women than men in the industry. And so there are times when I'm the only woman in the room that can be an advantage or a disadvantage. But in a big company like Ford, I've found it to be an advantage. As long as you make sure you are prepared for those meetings and make the right comments and the right input, and I think that's an opportunity. Now, recently, Mary Barra was named as the CEO
Right.
of General Motors, which is really was kind of shocking in our industry to have a woman leading in an automotive industry. I think she's already making a difference in how young women perceive the industry. And I think we'll see more and more now coming into automotive, and I think that's great, because certainly our market is 50-50, roughly, women and men, so our company should represent that as well.
You're back at Purdue today to speak to a class of both men and women. What kind of a message will you have for them today?
Well, I think one of the things that, a pressure that I put on myself throughout my career has been, there's always going to be choices that you have to make. And at each point, it sort of felt like if I made the wrong one, the world would end. These were big decisions. But over time, I think I've learned that the right decision for me has been to keep as many options open as I could. Because it's really hard to know what you want to do 5 years, 10 years, certainly 20 years down the road. And so I've been fortunate to do things like an international assignment, which to me opened up even more options. So those are the kind of things that I now look for. And I think looking back 20 years ago, if I had been in their shoes, to maybe not put so much pressure on myself that I have to make the right decision, but make decisions that leave lots of options open.
Back to, you talked about 50% male, 50% female car buyers. I know in my household, I bought my car, my wife bought hers. How do you market differently? If you're going, do you have a separate marketing strategy for the male and female buyer?
Well, it's interesting. We don't typically have a separate strategy, but how we talk about things does matter. So I'll give you a couple examples. So when you're talking about horsepower, men like the statistics, the number, 300 horsepower. Well, women will talk about they want power in their vehicles, but they want it to do things like being able to pass. If I pull out, can I get out of the way of something quickly and safely? They'll talk about the feature benefit more so than the actual statistics and the feature itself. So that can influence how we talk about things in our communication, but we find that they want very much similar things in their vehicles. It just may be how they communicate the benefit may be different.
Chantel, welcome back to campus. Thank you very much for doing this
Thank
with our
you.
students.
Thank you.
For Chantel Lenard, I'm Tim Newton.